Good morning. The first item of business is general questions, the shortest question period we have in the week. Question number 1, I call Paul McLennan.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. To ask the Scottish Government what progress it has made on improving accommodation standards in relation to legislation that currently exists in Scotland for seasonal agricultural workers.
Cabinet Secretary Mary McCallum.
Presiding Officer, no one residing in Scotland, however temporarily, should have to live in substandard accommodation. There are currently provisions within the Housing Scotland Act 1987 which oblige a local authority to make bylaws with respect to accommodation for agricultural and seasonal workers, and this is sections 314 and 315 of the Act. I would expect local authorities to use existing law to make provision in their area, suited to their area and in response to activity in their area. Meantime, the Scottish Government continue to develop what is a longer-term piece of work, considering whether a national set of standards would be appropriate.
Paul McLennan.
Can I thank the Cabinet Secretary for that answer? In my time as Minister, I was aware of the complexities of the matter, and I think she's quite correct in raising how important local authorities are in this regard. Also, Scotland can lead the way in the UK and globally by commencing statutory standards for the accommodation of seasonal horticultural workers to help ensure that they have the safe and dignified places in which to live. Can I therefore ask what the indicative timeframe is for introducing such legislation in the scope of legislation that the Cabinet Secretary referred to?
Cabinet Secretary.
Thanks, Presiding Officer, and I thank Paul McLennan for the work he did as Housing Minister to advance this important area. I have to reiterate that there is existing primary legal provision for this matter, and as I say, that's set out in sections 314 and 315 of the Housing Scotland Act 1987, and that's in respect of local authorities making bylaws for the situation as it arises in their area. However, we are taking on that longer-term piece of work, considering a national suite of standards, but this would require careful development, public consultation and likely require primary legislation, and I'll be glad to keep Parliament up to date on the progress of that.
Question number 2, Pam Gossel.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. To ask the Scottish Government regarding any implications for its policy on single-sex spaces in the NHS in Scotland, what its response is to the recent ruling in the case brought by 8 nurses at Darlington Memorial Hospital.
Cabinet Secretary Neil Gray.
Presiding Officer, the outcome of the Darlington Employment Tribunal is a matter for the NHS Trust and the claimants in that tribunal, and I won't comment on it. However, in relation to single-sex spaces, health boards must ensure that all their facilities comply with relevant legislation, including the Equality Act 2010, and we have written to Health Board Chief Executives to reiterate the importance of ensuring the law is followed following the Supreme Court judgment.
Pam Gossel.
I thank the Cabinet Secretary for that response. The Darlington Employment Tribunal found that employers had indirectly discriminated against female nurses when it allowed a biological male to use single-sex changing areas. This case re-emphasises what we already know. The definition of a woman is based on biological sex. Sadly, the SNP still continue, the Scottish Government continue, to betray women in Scotland by refusing to instruct all of Scotland's public bodies to uphold the Supreme Court ruling. Is the Scottish Government prepared for more legal challenges funded by the taxpayer to keep defending the indefensible?
Cabinet Secretary.
Presiding Officer, we accept the Supreme Court ruling. The Scottish Government has made it clear that it accepts the Supreme Court ruling and is taking forward the detailed work necessary following it. Every key area of government which is or may be affected by the Supreme Court judgment is carrying out assessments across legislation, guidance and policies, and we have updated our guidance for the gender representation on public boards. Scotland Act 2018 amended the public appointments recruitment process for public bodies subject to the Act. It moved to an interim trans and non-binary inclusion policy for Scottish Government staff, and we've written to Health Board Chief Executives to reiterate the importance of ensuring the law is followed and the Supreme Court judgment is implemented, and engagement with health boards is ongoing.
Brief supplementary, Jackie Bailey.
The Scottish Labour Government ended the use of mixed-sex wards in the NHS in 2005, yet responding to an FOI in 2024, only 2 health board areas, Dumfries and Galloway and Orkney, confirmed that they offered single-sex accommodation across all their wards. So can I ask the Cabinet Secretary what assessment has been carried out by the Scottish Government of the number of mixed-sex wards, and will it ensure that all wards in NHS hospitals operate as single-sex?
Cabinet Secretary.
Presiding Officer, since 2005, as Jackie Bailey says, we've expected NHS boards to ensure that all of their facilities comply with the guidelines and recommendations on the elimination of mixed-sex accommodation. Further guidance concluded that there should be a presumption of 100% single rooms in future hospital developments, and this is confirmed as policy for NHS Scotland, except in exceptional circumstances that are set out, and responsibility with complying with the requirements of the Equality Act rests with individual organisations.
Question number 3, Maggie Chapman.
Thank you. To ask the Scottish Government what action it will take to sustain the projects aiming to tackle poverty and social exclusion in the North East Scotland region that are currently supported by the Investing in Communities Fund beyond March 2026.
Mr Richard Lockhead.
Across the Scottish Government, we will continue to deliver on our priorities, and the draft Scottish Budget, of course, sets out £68 billion worth of investment, securing and expanding the UK's most generous cost of living package as well. The Investing in Communities Fund has been a valued source of funding since 2019, delivered directly to communities and empowering them to address local challenges on their own terms, and we continue to work across Scottish Government to understand how the learning from this fund can inform future funding support for community-led action.
Maggie Chapman.
Projects across the North East rely on this funding to exist, like CFINE's Aberdeen Partnership Action Community Together, or SHMOO's Connecting Communities, or the Muirton Trust for Education's Education Programme and the Environment, or Maxwell Town Information Centre's Maxwell Centre and Garden. Without urgent clarity, these organisations and projects will be forced to plan for managed exits, with profound impacts on communities across my region. When will these projects and the people they support know about their future to avoid the need for them to be scaled back or lost altogether?
Minister.
I can tell the member that we very much value this fund, but of course it's nearing the end of its round. But in light of the late budget from the UK Government and the situations we face here, we now have to look at how we support these organisations through a transitional period, and we will be writing to them all this week with an update on the details of how we're going to do that.
Brief supplementary, Kevin Stewart.
Thank you very much, Presiding Officer. It is great that so many organisations and communities across Scotland have benefited from the Investing in Communities Fund, including the Foyer, CFINE and SHMOO in Aberdeen. Does the Minister recognise the importance of this fund, and will he give comfort to these organisations so that they can continue their vital work in our most deprived communities?
Minister.
I just want to assure the member that we are writing this week to the organisations that currently are funded through the existing round, which of course is coming to an end, but we are going to fund now, I can advise Parliament, transitional arrangements for the next financial year for those organisations.
Question number 4, Jamie Green.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. To ask the Scottish Government whether it will reconsider its stated position of opposing the construction of new nuclear power stations in Scotland.
Cabinet Secretary Gillian Martin.
We do not support the construction of new nuclear power stations in Scotland under current technologies, and while we recognise the role that nuclear has played in the existing energy mix, new nuclear would take decades to deliver, comes at very high cost and creates long-term radioactive waste liabilities. Scotland has abundant renewable resources with the clear potential to meet electricity demand through continued deployment of renewable energy and storage, and we're prioritising technologies that are quicker to deliver, lower cost and proven to maintain security of supply, rather than new nuclear projects that would take decades to materialise.
Jamie Green.
I'm afraid that shows a complete lack of understanding of the nuclear industry and the technology around it. I'm afraid to say, Cabinet Secretary, look, the Liberal Democrats have been on a bit of a journey on nuclear energy, and that's because nuclear complements renewables. The two are not mutually exclusive. The world is absolutely less secure. We should not be importing fracked gas into the UK or into Scotland. And embracing nuclear energy will create jobs, growth and investment into this country. The technology has moved on, and I think so should we. So can I ask the Cabinet Secretary, if the Scottish Government will not end its ideological ban on nuclear energy, if they won't do that, will they get in the way of any new nuclear development on existing sites, and how will they achieve that?
Cabinet Secretary.
Our stated position is new nuclear. Obviously, if the existing sites are able to extend their life, then that's a matter for them, and we would consider that as being a completely different proposition. I do have to point out, though, that the cost of nuclear, if you look at Hinkley Point C, The cost was expected to be completed in 2025 at a cost of £18 billion. Now the cost is estimated at £46 billion, and it's delayed until 2031. I think that's a lesson for all. I don't want us to be saddled with something like that in Scotland.
Much interest, little time. Douglas Lumsden, brief supplementary.
Thank you, President Officer. We know that the SNP hate oil and gas. We know that the SNP hate nuclear. The SNP are anti-science, anti-progress and anti-investment and want us all to be poorer. So can I ask the Cabinet Secretary, has the devolved Scottish Government carried out an economic impact assessment on their policy of turning their backs on new nuclear investment? And if not, why not?
Cabinet Secretary.
So the Scottish Government did commission a report which was published in December 2023, and it found that the reduction in traditional firm generation in Scotland, which includes nuclear, would be offset by vast increases in wind and solar installed capacity, along with the installation of storage technologies, will provide continued security of supply in Scotland.
Question number 5, Graham Simpson.
To ask the Scottish Government how it plans to protect hospice care services over the coming year.
Minister Jenny Minto.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. The draft budget for 2026-27 includes an initial £6.5 million to support independent hospices and help ensure that frontline hospice staff providing essential palliative care are paid in line with their NHS colleagues. While this funding will help address immediate pay challenges, the Scottish Government acknowledges the importance of longer-term financial sustainability of hospices. I look forward to meeting with representatives of the Scottish Hospice Leadership Group and Hospice UK in early February to understand what more can be done to support hospices while respecting local commissioning arrangements.
Graham Simpson.
Can I thank the Minister for that answer? The initial £6.5 million in the draft budget for hospices falls significantly short of the £13.3 million that hospices were calling for to fully match NHS pay for their staff. In fact, it only includes £1.5 million for hospices to match next year's NHS pay award, and they say they need an extra £4.4 million. So can the Scottish Government promise that it will deliver on its existing commitment to pay parity for hospice staff by ensuring funding for hospices in the final budget will fully cover the cost to hospices of matching the 26-27 NHS pay award?
Minister.
I thank Graham Simpson for his supplementary question. As I indicated in my first answer, our budget includes an initial £6.5 million to support independent hospices. And as I said, I look forward to meeting with representatives to the Scottish Hospice Leadership Group and Hospice UK in early February.
Question number 6, Colin Beattie.
To ask the Scottish Government what discussions it's had with non-medical aesthetic practitioners regarding training opportunities for the sector in advance of the introduction of the Non-Surgical Procedures and Functions of Medical Reviewers Scotland Bill.
Minister Jenny Minto.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. The Scottish Government has met many non-medical aesthetic practitioners and listened to their views, including about training standards. However, neither the Bill nor the SSI currently before Parliament sets any such standards. We know that there are existing training options for practitioners, and before creating standards for the sector, we will continue engaging with a wide range of stakeholders. Training and qualification standards are not included in the Bill or SSI due to the UK Internal Market Act. I intend to continue working with the UK Government to introduce these important standards as soon as possible.
Colin Beattie.
Of course, public safety must be paramount, but I've received correspondence from businesses who have spent tens of thousands of pounds in training and who now may be at risk of closure. It's critical we root out bad practice. However, has the Minister had any engagements with educational institutions to facilitate a practical pathway for non-medical aesthetic practitioners?
Minister.
Thank Colin Beattie for his supplementary question and agree with him that public safety is paramount. In the work that we've been doing with regards to the Bill and the SSI, we will be speaking to educational institutes to ensure that we get the right training standards once the Bill if it is passed.
Thank you. Question number 7, Liz Smith.
To ask the Scottish Government what support it will provide to young athletes who will be representing Scotland in sport in 2026.
Minister Marie Todd.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. We are looking forward to a spectacular summer of sport with the Men's Football World Cup finals and the Glasgow 26 Commonwealth Games. No doubt there will be outstanding performances from Scottish athletes across many sports, demonstrating the strength of Scotland's performance system and further inspiring young people. Sport Scotland, working with Scottish governing bodies, provides athlete personal awards and specialist performance services from the Sport Scotland Institute of Sport. In addition, the Winning Students 100 programme offers financial support and academic flexibility for student athletes. The additional £40 million announced in the Scottish Budget will enable Scottish governing bodies to better support athletes across sporting pathways.
Liz Smith.
Well, that's all very good stuff. But last month, Minister, I have received representations from 3 different constituents whose daughters have been selected to represent Scotland in both volleyball and hockey, telling me that there is no dedicated funding available to cover the cost of travel, accommodation or competition expenses, and I have to say this has been a recent issue with women's cricket. So does the Minister agree that this is an unacceptable situation for those who are selected to represent their country? And will some of the uplift that the Minister has just mentioned when it comes to the budget go towards addressing this situation?
Minister.
So the member will be aware that the investment that Scottish Government makes in sport in Scotland is funnelled through Sport Scotland, our national sporting organisation, who work closely with the sports governing bodies for each individual sport to ensure that athletes are supported on these elite pathways. That is why, and I have to say, you know, this has been a really successful programme. This is why Scotland punches above its weight in sport. We are a sporting nation. We are very successful. Just in the next week or so, we see, I know these are 2 teams close to the member's heart, we see the Scottish cricket men going to the World Cup in India, and we see our curlers going to the Winter Olympics. So we have a system for investing in sport in Scotland. We have a system that is inspiring and encouraging young athletes, and we are successful at sport in Scotland.
Thank you. Question number 8, Jackie Dunbar.
To ask the Scottish Government how it is working to support Scottish businesses in light of the potential impact of additional US trade tariffs on the Scottish economy.
Minister Richard Lockhead.
Free and open international trade is critical to achieving growth in the Scottish economy, and the recent threat of additional tariffs from the United States was inconsistent with that, so clearly we all welcome that this risk has now receded. The impacts of tariffs, of course, continue to be apparent. The Scottish whisky sector reported 1,000 job losses last year, and the sector estimate 10% reciprocal tariff could result in up to £400 million annual export losses to the US as well. And our 6-point action plan for exports augments our existing support to respond to the global economic volatility.
Jackie Dunbar.
During such global economic uncertainty, it is more vital than ever to champion our world-class Scottish products in both new and in existing markets. Can the Minister outline a bit more how the Scottish Government's new 6-point export plan will help enable this?
Minister.
Well, the plan helps both companies and sectors in Scotland take advantage of additional opportunities for exporting in emerging markets, whilst also maintaining footholds in critically important existing markets. And the additional support being made ranges from increasing company-level support through Scottish Enterprise to extending the reach of our International Trade Partnership Programme with the Scottish Chamber of Commerce, to give one example. And I should also just inform the Chamber that tomorrow the Government will be publishing our evaluation report of the recent visit by ministers, along with companies from Scotland, on trade missions to the Osaka Expo. And that will make good reading and show the effort that this Government is making towards promoting exports to the rest of the world in countries like Japan as well.